Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this Saturday we have #Funtime, a new multi-platform released twin-stick shooter. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer One Guy Games, #Funtime released in mid-July for all current major platforms. We're looking at it on the Nintendo Switch, but this review should apply for the Xbox One, the PC, and the PlayStation 4 versions as well, as this game should play the same across all those platforms. So, taste-wise, this is very much in the flavor of games like Geometry Wars and Super Stardust. So, if you like those type of games, this is one that you might want to check out. What kind of gameplay do we have? At the main menu, there are two modes we can play the game in, the challenge mode and the arcade mode, and they're actually quite different. But I would recommend starting with the challenge mode as, well, it'll help teach you the game. So challenge mode has all these various challenges that you can score stars on based off your performance, all the way up to 3 stars. For every star you get, you will unlock additional challenge modes all the way up to 54. So there's actually quite a bit of content here to challenge and grind out. Some of the challenges I've liked better than others, but still, the way it starts out, it's very good at giving you a tutorial on how to play. How do we play? Diving into tutorial 1, the first challenge we have is named Escape. So it's basically just teaching you the movement of the game. Reach the end as quickly as possible. So we see we have a little icon there that's telling us our move. So we can move through this maze, and our goal is to get to that shining yellow orb. So in order to do that, we have to go up around. If we were to go through these barriers, we would die. I did pick up an extra life, but there's no reason to waste it haphazardly. So we'll continue to press on. I believe we come this direction. One thing that it doesn't tell you is you do have the ability to shoot. And it's a twin stick shooter. So you move with the left stick, shoot with the right stick. And then bam, we make it to the middle, we get our level complete, and it gives us our results. In this case, even going that slowly, it was still enough for a 3-star performance. You can move on to the next stage, you can restart. Unfortunately, to get back to the level select, there's no option there. You actually have to go into the menu by either canceling out from that menu or pressing the start or equivalent thereof for your console of choice, and it'll bring up the start menu. And from there, you can drop back to the level menu. And there are some advantages from that. Not only can you select different levels, but you can also check the score as well. So this stage teaches us a little bit about the multiplier functionality that the game has. So instead of build over time or build per kill per damage multiplier system, this has a point, or rather an item-based multiplier system. So there'll be these multiplier items labeled as X's that glow, like this one right up here in the corner, and for every single one of those multiplier power-ups we collect, our score will increase, or rather our score multiplier will increase 0.1. And I don't believe there's an upper limit to that. However, if you happen to take a hit, if you lose a life, you will lose your multiplier. So that is something to keep in mind. As far as the number of lives we have, that is considered our health, which is displayed in the top left. The number of pluses you have are your number of lives. So if you have 1 plus, then that means the life you're on is it. If you've got multiple, then you've got more lives. So right now we've got 4 lives, and we can continue to play this stage as long as we don't exhaust our lives. Just to move on, I'll go ahead and lose all my lives. The invulnerability frames between hits aren't very significant, so if you're not careful, it's actually very possible to take multiple hits very quickly. Moving on to the next level. Before each level, you do have this brief little splash screen which tells you at the top what your goal is. So this one is teaching us about the color swap. On the left of the screen, you'll see that there's different icons that appear underneath our health, and that's basically telling us what actions, what abilities we have access to. So this is actually pretty mind-bending, so doing this while recording is quite tricky. So and this is something that I've admittedly had a problem with. So the color scheme they came up with for the color swaps don't really correspond to any of the major button configurations that I can come up with. So it's kind of like you're just learning to speak a new language, and that can be kind of difficult, as sometimes you have to be thinking really fast for this particular kind of gameplay. But it is a neat system. So basically, when you're that color, you can pass through laser beams of that color, and there are also some other advantages to being certain color swapped. Later on, we get a drone, and that drone's fire type will change depending on what path we are. There are also certain enemies that can only be destroyed by stepping on a colored path of their color, which is what this stage is teaching us, as well as also producing a point bonus. So like this one is a blue orb, so we want it to run into a blue field. So we just surround it with a blue field, move around, it'll follow us, and boom, it's gone. Then the rest of the stage will proceed relatively normally. The other enemies that appear, these cubes, if they are of the color of the field, they'll explode and you'll get a triple score indicator, which obviously means you'll get extra points for defeating enemies of that color with your grid. So it's a pretty neat little system that way. But in the crazy heat of this kind of twin stick shooter, sometimes it can get a little bit hard to manage. Later on, when you get bombs, sometimes it's easier just to use the bombs to just blow things up and leave it at that. So in this stage, rather than having to reach a goal and having a set number of lives, we actually have unlimited lives, but a set amount of time. So we're trying to achieve as high a score as possible in that time frame. Just in the sake of saving some time, I will drop back to the level select. And that's basically it. It's like you've seen the bulk of the base mechanics. Throughout the course of the tutorials, they'll also introduce our drone ship, which is cutely titled the Friend Ship. There's also bombs and a boost that are added as well. So arguably that's the main mode of the game. But dropping back to the main menu, you have the arcade mode, and here's where I've had more fun with the game, specifically with the waves mode. So you have 6 different modes that are all just about surviving as long as you can, and each one has its own slightly different set of rules. The survival ones are the same set of rules, they just change the stage a little bit. Although I do not like the open survival. I'll hop into that one real quick to just show what's going on with it. Part of the reason I made the comparison to Super Stardust is because there are asteroids in this game, in the large survival stages. But look at how dark these are. Unless you see light there, it's pretty easy to miss them. And as the gameplay gets more and more frantic, they get bumped around and start to move in very weird directions. And a lot of times, you won't see them coming, you'll get hit, you'll be like, what in the heck even hit me? It can get pretty frustrating. I would like these modes a lot better if the lighting was different or if the asteroids were just brighter. Just complained about this particular mode. There are some challenge stages that use this as well, and they're tricky at best to get a decent score on. At least I feel. Maybe this kind of thing might be more your cup of tea, but for me, these ones just ended up being more frustrating than anything. Dropping back to the menu. So, the survivals, you're basically just trying to survive as long as you can. Initially, when you start playing in the arcade mode, you only have a single life and the base one-shot gun. We can upgrade ourselves, which is awesome. For every point we score, we get a credit that we can spend in this upgrade store. So we can give ourselves additional lives all the way up to the maximum of 6, We can upgrade our shots, we can give ourselves bombs and then upgrade how many we have, give ourselves boosts, upgrade how many, purchase the color swap, which is needed to access the last two modes in the arcade mode, access the friendship, and also select health pickups that in most modes, and this says it's not active in waves, but will drop as pickups every once in a while. And like the reason it's not accessible in waves is every wave, if you haven't died, you'll get your life as well as your bombs and everything back. Maybe that's part of the reason why it's my favorite mode, but I just do enjoy kind of the pacing that it has. So in wave mode, obviously we're facing different waves of enemies, but there's a brief respite in between where we can collect our multipliers, which is the only time multipliers show up in this particular mode, as well as, well, just take a respite. So here we pick up multipliers and move on to the next wave. Things will get more difficult. We'll even encounter boss-like enemies eventually. Over 50 different waves. I haven't survived anywhere near that long. I think my best performance has been about wave 13 so far, but it's been very satisfying. This is the mode that I've definitely enjoyed the most. But there are some challenges that have been fun to do. There's some that do change things up a fair bit. You get a ball and chain for like one of them, and the ball and chain's pretty neat, is it does actually change the scoring mechanics a little bit. If you kill an enemy with that ball and chain by swinging it around your ship, you increase your multiplier that way as well. One of the few times where you can increase your multiplier aside from just the multiplier power-ups. So in this mode, of course, if you've unlocked it, you can change the color swap as well, which, as you can see, changes the type of fire that we've got on our friendship, which is the little gear that follows you around. Oops, got shot there. That sucks, is that I lost my multiplier. However, because this is wave modes, as long as I survive to the end of the wave, I will get all my lives restored. And that's basically #Funtime. It's an enjoyable enough title, but there are a few issues I have with it. So, first off, minus flavor, the color confusion. Like I mentioned, there are times you have to rapidly think about which color you need to be and press the right button. I would have loved if there'd been some sort of on-screen guide, like in the bottom right-hand corner or something, like kind of a transparency that has like... So there's that circle in the... Well, pausing's so bad. Let's see time. There's that circle in the top left when you see your abilities, and it has like the color swap there. But the order the colors are in do not correspond to which button would be which color. So I'd just like to see a big, like, transparent circle in, like, the bottom right where you have the colors mapped to the buttons they would be. So, like, the A button on the Switch controller is green. I would have liked to see, like, maybe the right or the east quadrant be the color green, the south quadrant be red, the west quadrant be yellow, and the top quadrant, the north quadrant, be blue. That would be something that would really help me, although, you know, in the heat of a battle you might not even have the ability to look over at that kind of overlay. The other minus flavor, not as much in this mode, and maybe this is another reason I prefer the waves, but it just feels like there's too many times where the game cheap shots you. The open survival stage where you've got all those asteroids in particular, like I say, there's a lot of times where it's like, what even killed me? But that happens on all the stages. And part of it is the colors that your grids are. Sometimes it hides enemies behind you, or enemy shots. There's also these asteroids that in a lot of stages are just falling out of the sky and will very easily hit you and kill you, and it's just kind of like, why? It's already hard enough as is. Like, what are you trying to prove, Dev? And this isn't so much a minus flavor, but maybe more of a missed opportunity, but I feel like this game would have been a decent one to have some local multiplayer in. As even if it's just two-player, it'd be kind of fun to play together or even compete for score, trying to set the highest totals in the various modes. It does have online leaderboards, so you can compete for score that way, which is satisfying, but as of the time of this recording, it doesn't seem like very many people have picked this up on the Switch, as there aren't very many people on the leaderboards, at least once you get out of the first few stages. On the plus side, I do love the score attack feel of the game, where you're finished playing through a mode, you're like, once more, I can do better than that, or no, I gotta get 3 stars on this, I gotta get a better score, or I need more money for the upgrades. I really like that kind of incentivized replayability, and this game has that in spades. Also, it sports a really unsurprising, given the kind of gameplay it has, but it sports a really neat kind of electronica techno soundtrack that just really fits the game really well with that neat neon aesthetic that it's got going. So, there you have it. Hashtag Funtime served up for your enjoyment. I guess it's another minor complaint. The name, I think, could have used a little bit of work, but it's definitely not something that is that big of a deal at the end of the day. Though maybe it might, hold it back a little bit, as it'll just make it be lost in the background that much easier. Still, if you're a fan of twin-stick shooters, then this is one that I would definitely recommend checking out. On all major platforms, it does appear that they are having an opening week sale, so if you want to get in on this one, I would recommend getting in on it earlier just to save yourself a few dollars. Alright, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining me this week, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.